The year is 1986, and we have just seen a rough cut of what will become the movie Highlander. And we're going to fix it. So cue the intro. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mirror Movie Universe podcast. My name's Nate, one half of the hosts of this shindig of a show, and across the aisle and across from the country from me is not Dan. This is, instead of my older brother Dan, this is our cousin Graham. Say hello, Graham.
Hello.
Hey, everybody. Graham, you're younger than Dan and I. You're younger than me by about 4 years, and you're younger than Dan by like 12-ish.
Is it?
Um,
I didn't even realize it was that much.
oh yes. And I like to think that we've influenced your interests in pop culture and movies in quite a bit throughout your life. You've gotten some cool stuff from us, I think. But
Quite a bit. I mean, you've already told the Princess Bride story.
I told the Princess Bride story. This is the man, ladies and gentlemen. This is the man. But you're filling in for Dan because he's having a kid. Well, his wife's having a kid, and he'll be out for a little while. And while he is, you're gonna be here. This is an episode about a movie that you gave me instead of the other way around. This is an episode about Highlander. Which you told me to watch a few years back, and I happily did. And oh boy, is it fun! So yeah, in order to talk about what we like about Highlander and what we would fix about Highlander, we got to talk about what happens in Highlander. So we'll go back and forth with this a little bit. But yeah, we'll kick it off. So the movie opens at like a big wrestling match event kind of thing, and we see this awesome looking dude in a trench coat walking through a parking lot, and he is attacked by another guy, and instead of shooting at each other because it's contemporary 1986, they're fighting with swords, which is pretty cool. And they're slashing at each other, and eventually our trench coated hero beheads the other guy, and then there's all sorts of wind whistling and blue electricity stuff going on. We find out that our protagonist's name is Graham. I don't remember his name.
Connor MacLeod, the clan
His
MacLeod.
name is Connor MacLeod, and he is in fact an immortal Highlander being from ancient Scotland, and they're Highlanders from all over the world. And he found out that he was immortal when he was, killed in battle, and then sort of came back in this ancient Scottish village. And he had a girlfriend in this ancient Scottish village, and they started to think that he was something not of the Lord because he came back from the dead and all of this stuff. And so they sort of cast him out. He gets a new girlfriend in the Scottish countryside. Could be like a month later, could be like 15 years later. We don't know, because he's immortal. And he is visited by another dude played by Sean Connery, and I don't remember his name either.
And neither did I. I had to look this up to make sure I got it right.
Okay, all right.
Sean Connery plays the fantastically named Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, who, despite that name, is not actually Spanish. He is a 2,000-year-old Egyptian who has traveled all over the world and currently resides as some sort of advisor to Spanish royalty.
And he also spent a lot of time in Japan, right?
Yes, yes, he did.
What a blessing that we've cast Sean Connery as this individual.
But truly one of the best parts of the film.
Oh, it's very entertaining. He starts to train Connor MacLeod in the ways of being the Highlander. He can run super fast like a deer or something, and he can breathe underwater and all this because he can't be killed. So scenes of this training and such are interspersed with modern day New York, where Connor MacLeod is like an antique dealer, and the cops are trying to figure out what went on with this sword fight, and the cops have, because I guess they do, the cops just have a medieval sword expert on their payroll.
Yes,
Because
she's the forensic scientist, and she's also written books on medieval metallurgy,
yes,
which, you know, I mean, do both.
yeah, sure. And she figures out that the sword that was used in the fight is some kind of special Japanese sword. The metal was folded 2 million times or something like that. And she, starts to, have suspicions about Connor MacLeod, who's been questioned by the police, but they can't get anything to stick. So she is sort of pieces things together a little bit that he might be not all that he seems, 1980s businessman like. And they sort of start up a budding romance as well, but it's not all cool sword fights and romance, because there's an evil dude named the Krill, or the
The
what, I'm
Kurgan,
sorry, the Kurgan, played by Clancy Brown, who is a great villain, and he's an evil
fantastic.
Highlander. Yes, he is actually the guy who tried to kill Connor MacLeod in the first place. He's also super immortal, and he in the past, attacks the Connor MacLeod's dwelling, his little castle, and kills Ramirez. Ramirez gets a good chop at his neck, but he kills Ramirez, and Connor MacLeod, is set off on his own. His mentor is killed. The Kurgan is now in New York. He's got a cool suitcase with a retractable sword, and he's gonna fight Connor MacLeod for the title of the last one standing, because Highlanders kill each other, and there's some process of absorption. There's a name for it. You're the Highlander guy. What's it called?
Yeah. So, um, for whatever reason, immortals have this rule: there can be only one. If you have any passing familiarity with Highlander, you've probably heard that line thrown out.
There can
Um,
be only one. Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
It's said
Um,
many times in the film. It's very cool.
yes. And it's said many other times in all of the other Highlander media, because there's several sequels to this movie, a couple TV shows starring a different MacLeod,
Mhm.
and an animated series starring a different MacLeod for some reason.
Yeah.
Um, but when an immortal is, you can only kill an immortal by cutting off their head. When
Yes.
an immortal kills another immortal, what's called the quickening is released, which is
Mm-hmm.
the blue crackly electricity stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Very comparable for all of you Doctor Who fans of a Doctor's regeneration.
Oh,
It
okay.
looks a lot
Yeah.
like that. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
There's
Um,
blasting of light and all this
yes.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
Windows break. There's electricity everywhere. There's energy everywhere. It's very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that contains, or is supposed to contain, all of the knowledge and experience of not just that immortal, but every immortal they've killed.
Mm-hmm.
So it is this sort of culmination of all of the knowledge of all of the immortals is passed down until there's only one left. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how it's done.
So we see the Kurgan do this to several people in New York, several other Highlanders who were like friends with Connor MacLeod. I don't recall any of their names, but he's gaining power. He kidnaps the sword lady at the end, and then they have a final showdown, Connor MacLeod and the Kurgan, that ends with Connor MacLeod slicing his head. And there's this, it's like the most powerful quickening, because it gets more powerful as it goes along. It's like the most
Mm.
powerful quickening, and Connor MacLeod says, "There can be only one." And Freddie Mercury plays a chord on his guitar, and the windows blast out, and Connor MacLeod is the last one left, and that's how the movie ends. Or so we think, because as you pointed out, there are series and other movies and all of this sort of
Yes.
stuff. So Connor MacLeod is apparently at this point not the last Highlander left.
He he is. They
Okay.
retcon stuff with the sequels,
Mhm.
and the series take place before this movie from the series that I watched,
Oh,
and
it's a
because I
prequel thing. Cool.
it is a prequel thing. Stars focus on Duncan MacLeod, who
Mhm.
is, as Connor says in the pilot, same clan, different vintage. He's I think 30 or 40 years younger than Connor.
Yeah.
Because Connor was sort of a legend by the time Duncan was alive.
Mhm.
Um, so the other movies, I think, retcon stuff, and but the series is definitely a prequel.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
Cool. Cool. But there was enough interest in this little movie to do all of these different series and stuff. And
Yes.
there was enough interest for you to fall in love with this movie because if you're dad and then show it to me. I've seen it a couple of times in various states of getting what's going on. I was so bewildered explaining the plot. It's like, oh, I've seen this movie once and actually understood what was happening. But you love it, and
I do.
yes. What do you like about Highlander? What strikes your fancy, good sir?
One of the things that I love, and I think you love too, and you sort of alluded to this.
Yeah.
Queen does the soundtrack for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
They were hired to do like one song, and somebody in the band, or maybe the whole band, loved it so much that they did the entire soundtrack. They released it as an album separately on their own too,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of impressive given copyright stuff. Like that they could do that for a soundtrack and also just, hey, here's these songs that we had. They're just right here.
Mm-hmm.
And those songs are, Princes of the Universe, Who Wants to Live Forever. Like those are very solid songs, just on their own from Queen.
Oh yeah. I didn't know that Who Wants to Live Forever was like the Highlander thing until I watched this movie. Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes so much more sense once you know it's from this movie and it's used to really like exacerbate the sad scenes when Connor sees his second Scottish girlfriend grow old and die with him. And it's used to underscore that, which is really, really sad and really well done. Like the use of music in this film is very solid. The action's really good. I mean, we can't praise Sean Connery enough. Like
he's very entertaining. Like
he's so entertaining. I think this is one of the roles you can just see him having fun with. Like he's just having a ball. It's ridiculous.
He's like, there's a scene in the middle where he and Connor MacLeod are in a boat and Connor MacLeod either falls off or gets kicked off or something like that or loses his balance. And Sean Connery is just laughing it up. He's like, oh, that guy fell in the water. It's great. Oh man. No, it's very good. Yeah. Yeah. What anything else that really strikes your fancy about this movie?
The choreography is pretty good, like fight choreography and stuff. That's pretty good. There's a lot of respect thrown on forensics, which like this is right around the time that forensics was really becoming a big science.
Yeah.
And they play into that a little bit, which is really cool. They have everything from testing metal to trying to dust for fingerprints to even handwriting stuff. Like they figure out that Connor is immortal because they see that he's just been pulling the names from like deceased people, like deceased babies and stuff, so that he can just keep moving. Like he doesn't go by Connor MacLeod in the modern day. It's something Nash. I don't remember what it is. Everybody just calls him Nash because that's the last name he has.
It's a very modern American name. Yeah.
Yes, it's like Russell Nash or something like that. Like it's very mid to late 1900s common name, which helps him go under the radar with his antique business and all of that. So like that's also really, really cool. And I have one more thing, but I think you might take it. So I don't want to take too much from you.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can talk about my stuff, and if I don't hit it, you can mention it again. So the things I love about Highlander is that like top of the list is like the atmosphere of this movie is awesome. It's part of the Queen soundtrack, partly just how it's shot. It would be so easy to fall into the pitfall of doing like knights in shining armor, almost kind of sword fighting, very bright. But a lot of all the Scotland scenes are very like grim with like cloudy skies and all this. The first fight scene is in like this dark, like moody parking garage kind of thing. And I really, really like that. I love how just visually grim and dark this movie is.
Yes. Because
it's like high fantasy. It's something that you expect out of like King Arthur, and they go like super like dirty and grim and grimy and dark, and it's cool. It's very cool. It also owns the parts of itself that are just like a little bit weird and come out of nowhere. Like the first fight, like two guys in a parking garage draw swords, and you're like, Okay. All right, cool. And then like they start doing flips, and one of them like backflips for like 20 seconds away from the other guy. Um, and it just happens, and it's cool, and it looks awesome. Um, but the last the thing that I really, really, really like about this movie, and I think that this is the thing that you thought that I would like, and it indeed is something that I like. They focus on they could make this guy immortal, and they could make this guy immortal and not really think about how um how he would like not know anybody or be able to like keep in contact with anybody, or anyone around him in the present day would have to know he's immortal. And they do this whole sequence where they show what he was doing in World War II. um and he saves like a little girl in Europe, like a 5-year-old girl in Europe from a Nazi. And the Nazi shoots him, and he falls down, and the girl thinks he's dead, and then he just gets up and he says, "Hey, it's a kind of magic," which is a great line. He was doing good stuff back then, and he saved this girl. And later in the present day, she's in her 70s or whatever, and she's like his like personal assistant, because she knows he's immortal, and she's known since she was a little girl. And like they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to shoot a little insert scene and be like, "Hey, here's where this person comes from," but they did, and it's awesome. Yeah. Was that indeed what you thought I was going to talk about? Was the World War II thing?
Yes, it was. I thought, and I, it was that they do a really good job in this movie of giving flashbacks that are really important to Connor's character,
Mm-hmm.
with the exception of one, and it's still really fun, which is the dueling one where he keeps getting shot and keeps getting back up, and like it's like 1700s America. So like it's his dual pistol,
I
dueling
completely
with
forgot
pistols.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that scene is so funny, and it's one of the like the few genuine just this is a bit of levity that's in this movie because it's like
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that isn't super dark and grimy, and it's just funny.
Yeah.
Besides like the Ramirez training scenes,
Mm-hmm.
which this film needs, and I'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay.
But like the dueling scene and the other flashbacks are just really good at establishing this is a character who has been around for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and like you get that he understands people. It's not like how a lot of immortal characters like shelter themselves off and like don't interact with people. He gets people, and he's like he understands what it is to be human, and
Mm-hmm.
he kind of wishes he could have that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this film does that type of immortal character very well. It also does the type of immortal character that doesn't care about anything, which is the Kurgan,
Yes.
and they do him really well too. Clancy Brown is the perfect casting choice for him.
Oh, he's so good. He's
He's
so
so good.
evil.
Oh, he is. He like doesn't he like look at priest's hand in church or something just to freak him out?
Yeah, he does. They
Yeah.
also get his look like super
Oh
evil.
yeah.
Like I said, like Sean Connery's character Ramirez, like he takes a slash at his neck and he almost decapitates him. He almost defeats him. But for the rest of that movie, like the Highlanders heal all their wounds. But for the rest of the movie, like he has his neck like stapled together. It's super
Yeah.
gross.
Like
Oh my God.
he
Yeah.
deliberately put safety pins in his neck at one point just to be
Mm-hmm.
like, why not?
Yeah. It's such a good character.
He is very fun.
Yeah.
He was a very fun villain.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm with you. His voice is also not like normal Clancy Brown voice. It's
No,
he's doing like a lower register. There can be only one, and it's like, yeah, it's cool as hell.
it's
Um,
terrifying.
all this aside of stuff that you love about Highlander,
Mhm.
on the show we got to do a little fix. And you
Yeah.
said something about the Ramirez training scenes, right? So is that what you would in fact fix about this movie?
No, not that specific. That was more alluding to kind of how dark and grimy this is. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of stuff. And I feel like it's important to mention this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the film handles a lot of stuff well. Like we talked about a lot of stuff it handles well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how it handles sexual stuff well.
Mm.
Because some of that is a little dark and a little grimy, and
Yeah.
like it makes sense given the characters what happens. And some of it is pretty dark.
Yeah.
Just fair warning for the audience. Like that is an element of this film that like it's a little bit too big of a fix for us to remove in this show. But
Yeah.
it is kind of a like I don't want to say it's a product of the 80s. I think the writers were trying to do something and they could have handled it a little better, but
Yeah.
they didn't give themselves enough time to with everything else they were trying to juggle. Like that is a plot point that they really wanted to put in to fuel like extra fuel to the fire for the conflict
Hmm.
in multiple ways with multiple women.
Yeah.
Um, but it didn't really work. Like it not
No.
as well as it could have. And that's just not a fix that we can do.
No, it's not very tasteful, and because it's in many places in the film,
Hmm.
it's not like the a similar thing happens in Star Trek Nemesis, and Dan and I recorded our Nemesis episode a little while ago, and that's very easy to just be like cut whoosh, take it out of the movie. This is a little bit more integrated, which is quite unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like you could take out one line from the curtain or like like bits of a conversation from the curtain.
Yes.
Um, and that would fix some of it, but
Yeah.
not all of it. Because like the Kurgan stays at a really grimy hotel, and like it's very obvious that the
Hmm.
guy who runs it is also running a brothel there, and like
Hmm.
that's not handled with the most respect either to like anyone involved.
No.
Um, so like there's that, and like anything to do with the Kurgan and sex is probably not a good thing, and something a lot of fans would be, a lot of people like us included. Like I love the Highlander mythos a lot. I
Yeah.
love the TV show. This movie's really fun. I was very happy when Nate told me he watched it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed re-explaining the plot to him because he did not understand it at all.
I there's
But
so
like,
okay, so there's so much that happens, right?
yes,
um and like that was my first fix. It was like, oh yeah, I'd clean up the plot points a little bit, but it's a huge undertaking to
it's
either
too
remove that
much.
stuff or clean. Yeah. So
Yeah,
under the rules of our little shindig of a podcast, what would you clean up?
I think I would change the results of Connor being the one who gets all the immortality.
You saying you would have him lose, or
No, I wouldn't have him lose, but at the end, and I think this might have been something you forgot. He becomes mortal. Like he becomes like basically an omniscient mortal. He gains basically all the knowledge, and it's explained really confusingly. He like can see people's thoughts, and he can like understand everything on a much deeper level. But he can also grow old and have children, which
Mhm.
is a big desire for all of the immortals. Immortals can't have children.
I forgot about that
Um,
too. See,
yeah,
there's so many little things. All right, yeah.
yeah, there's so much in this. And I remember a lot of the rules for how mortals work, mostly because I've watched the TV show a couple times through for the most part.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and there it's expounded on so much more. You kind of get beat over the head with it. Um, in the movie, it's all just kind of brushed past.
Mhm.
So like, there's not, and it's very easy. Like you've seen this film twice. I think I've seen this film 3 or 4 times.
Mhm.
It's so easy to forget how any of the rules work. And maybe some more clarification on that would be good, like a line here, a line there. But my fix would be not making Connor mortal. I feel like the whole threat of the gathering and getting the quickening is that somebody like the Kurgan does not gain immortality and
Yeah.
like rule over everything. That is the thing. So like Connor being this good-hearted person who now understands everything, like it set him up as a very human immortal.
Yeah.
So making him mortal, like it's a thing for his character and it makes sense,
Yeah.
but I think it kind of undercuts the whole point of giving somebody this type of power and like having this be something that immortals have been fighting over for millennia.
Yeah, yeah. And we all like to think that if we became immortal, we would be like Connor MacLeod and not like the
Mhm.
Kurgan. And
Yes.
it does change it up a little bit to just take it away from him at the end. It gives him what he wants.
Hmm.
Um, but narratively, okay, okay, I like this fix. I like it a lot. It's much better than mine. Um, I'll tell you what. Oh gosh, I'll tell you what I would do. I would redub all of the main characters' lines. I okay. Listen.
No, no. I see what you're getting at.
He does a fine job. You know,
He does.
people rag on Sean Connery because he has a Scottish accent and he's not doing the, Egyptian, Spanish, Japanese, whatever. That's
Mhm.
fine or whatever. We
That's
can
fine.
say he's been in Scotland for 500 years or whatever. He's immortal. He acclimated to
Yeah.
the accent. The main character at no point sounds either Scottish or American. At Not
No,
really. I don't even
no.
know. The actor is not like, I don't think English is his native language. Or if it is, he just has a very peculiar um cadence of
Yes,
speaking.
yes, he
Um,
does.
it adds a little bit to the mystery of the character, but I it's just like it takes me out of the film. Everything about this movie sucks me in and makes me buy the mythos and like, yes, this, like, I'm here, I'm in, I'm watching, I'm entertained. Um except like his voice is the only thing that pushes me further away from the screen.
Yeah, and
And
it's
moves
really
me out.
noticeable too.
Oh
Like,
yeah. There's oh my god, there's just a throwaway line where he's doing bad in his training with Sean Connery, and his girlfriend laughs at him and he's like, Heather, please. And it does
no,
not sound, I don't know,
it
it
sounds
just,
about as good as it sounds about as good of a Scottish accent as you just did mimicking it there.
right,
Like,
it's, yeah.
and it's nothing against Christopher Lambert, the actor who plays Connor MacLeod. Like,
Mm-mm.
he's a pretty good actor for this character. I think he brings the kind of physicality that you want to like
Mm-hmm.
this guy who's been around forever. He carries that weight on his shoulders, like the weight of time, very well.
Yeah.
I his voice sounds on first viewing like it has been dubbed over already.
Yeah, it never really matches the, it's almost like a spaghetti western kind of thing where it never really matches the
Yes,
lips already.
yes.
um
I know he speaks English. Like, I know that's him actually speaking. It's just his
yeah.
cadence doesn't. There's something about it that's off-putting at first, and I
Mhm.
like that fix too because that is something I didn't think about, and you are very correct on.
Great. Cool. That means I think that we've come to the end of the Highlander episode. So audience, which fix do you think you would implement in our place? Would you change up the voice of Connor MacLeod, or would you tackle Graham's fix? Graham, why should the audience tackle your fix over mine? Argue for yourself a little bit.
Well, I mean, yours is very much a technical standpoint of the film, like helping the film as it is exist more.
Yeah.
Mine is changing the narrative just slightly to make the rules of the world make a little more sense. So, like,
Yes.
yours is technical, mine is narrative. And
Yeah.
I think, well, we both love technical fixes.
Yeah.
Narrative fixes are a little more satisfying at the end of the day.
I think so too. I think the narrative fix of making him not mortal, it works a little bit better with this almost King Arthurian
Mhm.
mythos about this thing, except the Holy Grail isn't a cup, it's slicing another dude's head off. Anyway, I think
On
that
that
is the
note,
Highlander episode. Yeah, we hope that this finds you well, as Dan usually says, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and all of that bull crap, and we'll be back and again with a few more Gramisodes while Dan is out having a kid. So yeah, see you everybody.
bye.